If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. For one, it's free, and there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So make sure you download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome to Growth with Portia, a weekly conversation for your personal and professional growth. Here is your host, Portia Booker.
Hey listeners, welcome to Groove with Portia. I'm your host, Portia Booker, and yes, this is my real name. So, question for you. Did you bring your curious mind today? If so, I don't want to keep you waiting. Let's dive in. This conversation is dedicated to my mother, Sharonne Lopez, who made her transition from Earth on July 7, 2022. So today I am joined by an individual once in the head of the class of adverse experiences. After having an abortion in 2012 and enduring depression along with suicidal thoughts, little would she know the birth of her true calling would follow. Now, she is inspiring others through her nonprofit, Yana, You Are Not Alone at All, her boutique, which offers plus-size women more than a one-stop shop experience, and also mentorship for women to gain exposure, personal growth, and business opportunities. So without further delay, welcome to Groove with Portia, Miss Angel Inspires herself. How you doing today, Angel?
Yay! Hey, I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Portia. First of all, I'm honored for you to have me a part of something that is dedicated to your mom in this time of your grief. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, and we both have something similar in common, right? You know, grief stems in different levels and different areas of our life, whether it's through the loss of someone, a job opportunity, a friendship. So we both have that kind of in common. I really wanted to hit on that today because there's so many people, unfortunately, Angels, we both know, who are still grief ridden. You know, grief sometimes can hold people for months, weeks, and even years. And so just continuing on this series, I want to really continue to uplift people and show them that they can come out of that crippling moment within their life. And so, Angel, you know, I always love to start off my conversations with gratitude. What would you say you are grateful for today?
I'm grateful for another chance to do it over, to have a clean slate. I feel like every day we wake up, it's a clean slate, it's a new day. Whatever we didn't get right yesterday or days before that, it's our chance now to get it right. So I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful for the new thoughts and the new perspectives, the new lessons that I get daily, you know, and ultimately my family, the support of my family, my lovely husband, and you know, my baby boy.
Yes, you know, support is definitely key, especially when you're going through several transitions or transformations in your life, and you need someone to be able to lean on them and say, "Hey, I'm not feeling okay today. Can you just sit with me?" Even if you're just being quiet, you know, just having that presence of somebody else in the same room with you, whether it's virtually, in person, whatever, helps to keep you on the right path. And also that energy exchange lessens you feeling alone, isolated, depressed, etc. And so, Angel, I got to ask this, you know, as I read through your bio, you know, you had an abortion almost 10 years ago. And I'm always curious to know, how did you find the message within that abortion? Because so many people would see that as the end all be all of their life. And so, how did you find the mess within that message of you having that abortion 10 years ago?
It was really weird how it happened for me. And when I say weird, it wasn't something that took time to get the message. It was just like one day I'm at home. Well, after it happened, I'm at home, I'm depressed. I'm in a rock bottom state. The only place from here is to go up, but my mind still wasn't thinking that. But I hopped up. I remember hopping up, looking in the mirror and talking to myself. And I said, you know what? This is not going to be something that is going to be in vain. I need to do something about this. I wonder how many other people have gone through this and kept it to themselves. So for me, it was more like asking questions of myself and then realizing that other people are human too who have these same experiences. So immediately, spirit, God, the Most High, whoever we want to refer to it as, made me realize that I wasn't alone in whatever I was going through. And I feel like that was a major part for me. I feel like it was an awakening moment, you know. And when I said it wasn't going to be in vain, I didn't even have to think too hard about what was coming next. Automatically, Yana popped in my head. You are not alone. And it was based off of isolation, boredom, and loneliness, which is all things that caused me to produce these actions and these results in my life. And so if I wanted different, then I had to now do different and be different.
And Angel, I love that. You are not alone at all, because we tend to, when we're going through adverse moments in our life, whether it's an abortion or in my case, the loss of my mother, we tend to fall into that dark space, and it's hard to see that silver lining from right off the bat. Some people, like I mentioned, unfortunately become crippled. And so, Angel, for you, what did it take for you to overcome that stigma that's often placed on our society, especially in communities of color, when it comes to speaking openly about mental wellness and feeling that isolated feeling? What did it take for you to overcome that stigma and step into an arena of power instead of the arena of victimhood?
Evaluating myself and my household, everyone around me. And I found that the most common thing that was missing was transparency and vulnerability. And when I started doing research on mental health psychology, I really was fascinated with it all, how the brain works and all of this stuff. But when I started researching psychology and I realized these were two key ingredients of your recipe for healing, right? That's one of the courses I offered in the past. Your recipe for healing. I realized these two things were missing. And so if these two things were missing, then now I'm going to do something different, which is implement those two things into my life, into interactions with people so that I can better learn people. I was fascinated by stories. By me being transparent and vulnerable, I realized that as humans, that's what someone else will give you right back in return without even noticing. And so if I was open and willing to share, then I realized that other people were too. And so I've always led with the mindset that if somebody can't tell you about some stuff that happened in their life and they overcame, then how can I truly learn from this person? And that's where we hit the wall. We don't learn from someone who's not willing to open up and share things that they've been through out of fear. But it took a lot because with me being transparent and vulnerable came backlash from my family, because for some reason in Black households we have a way of sweeping things under the rug, not addressing them, and also just going about life like none of this stuff happened to us. And how can we truly heal if that's all the burden we want to carry? We're carrying all of this on our shoulders, you know what I mean? And so for me it was just like, I don't want to carry all of this no more. This is too heavy. I want to help people release. I want to help people become their best selves, but I want to do it for me first. So I want to be a leader in that. And that's how my experience, my journey with that went.
Angel, I love how you really touched on in households of color. It's that taboo-ness that being vulnerable, putting your business out there is like the ultimate sin. It's kind of like when you grow up in a household that's not socially, economically advantaged. It's like, oh, you have to keep everything a secret, from how much money you make, how much of this, but yet we expose how our mindset is by the clothes we invest in, the big TVs we bring in, the kind of car that we drive. So it's kind of that paradigm of we're showing one image, but really how honest and vulnerable and transparent is that image that you're portraying to your circle around you. And so, Angel, for you, what tips can you leave with people to be vulnerable, to be open to sharing their authentic selves and getting rid of the prescription fed, what I would call story that we're often told to share with the world?
So my number one big piece of advice is to vet people. When you are vulnerable or transparent, this is actually a gift that you're giving to someone. And so not everybody deserves that. And so because when you open up and share with the wrong people, then you're going to feel wrong about doing it. You're going to feel wrong about everything you've been through. You're going to feel some type of conviction. But when you open up to people who are also willing to share, who are also willing to, just tell you what they've been through, then it makes the process go easier. It makes the process worth it. So vet people. That's the number one thing. Is this person for you? The second piece of advice is your family has known you your whole life. And so when you start becoming this new person, opening up and sharing, they are still viewing you as old self. For some reason, we tend to not see that people are capable of growth. And so we end up seeing that person as the same person they were back then. But no, this is somebody new now. This is someone who is renewed, restored, and now I'm sharing and I'm healing my life. This means a lot to me. And so I would say vet people and just make sure that you are talking to the right people about what's happening in your life. Yeah, those are the two big pieces of advice. And I just say, if you get in front of the things that are happening to you, meaning you own it, nobody can talk about it. It's not going to make you feel bad. No one talking bad about it is going to take anything away from you, because you've given yourself that power to know that this is my story. I'm going to tell it when I want to. I'm going to tell it to whoever I want to. And I don't fear people's thoughts and opinions because I've healed from this. So yeah, lastly, I would say make sure you're healed from it before, or in the process of healing. Make sure you're completely comfortable before sharing, anything that you feel like is near and dear to you.
Angel, one of the things that you hit on was my favorite word, being intentional, whether it's with our connections, our words, our time, and everything. And I think that's key and pivotal in the world that we live in today, because not every action or transaction is aligned with our purpose. And so, Angel, before we jump into the next part of the show, if one of our listeners was interested in connecting with you and learning more about you, is there a social media handle or website you can share with us today?
I am on Instagram as Angel Inspires. I'm on Facebook as Angel Swanigan. And my website for the boutique, Sexy Size Up Boutique, is www.sexysizeupboutique.com.
Excellent, excellent. So you can all connect with Angel at your leisure. Angel, when you talk about your clothing, all of your endeavors, your many hands within things, I mean, you wear so many hats. I mean, you're a mother, speaker, entrepreneur, mentor. How do you find that balance between all of your passions and prioritizing your mental well-being? What does that look like for you?
Well, that's not something that's easy. Okay, so pretty much business is something that we have to work. The boutique is something I have to work on every day. So I make sure I do one thing every day that's towards my goal or towards growth of business, of everything, for each thing. Of course, being a mother is constant. One of the battles that I face is not having real support, me and my husband not having real support with my son. So we have him all the time, and so just kind of keeping it like having business hours, stuff like that, having business hours, making sure that the most important things are put first, making sure that I stop and make sure I'm connecting with myself. I'm going over things in my head, how do I feel today? Getting in the mirror, speaking life into myself, so those are all things. But honestly, balance, I don't know if balance really exists. It's hard to say, but I just do the best I can, and that's all we can do. Take it one day at a time.
Oh, absolutely. 100%, Angel. And, I love what you mentioned too about, how you and your husband have to find that common ground while, raising the family. And so, what does that look like too, Angel? Because I know there's a lot of women entrepreneurs who have children and also a spouse. And so, how does having those two things either add or also deplete from the different tasks that you're trying to accomplish daily?
I would say, number one, communication is the most important thing in relationships. And so, me and my husband have been working diligently to make sure that we communicate completely with each other. Sometimes we miss it, and that's where things get a little, but making sure I have them a part of everything that I do, making sure that everything is in alignment. My husband, he's fully vegan, and I'm vegan on and off, but now I'm transitioning into permanently being vegan. And so we want alignment in our lives, because if we don't have alignment, then there's something that's off, and now someone's growing more than the other person, and we don't want that. And so just making sure that they are a part of everything that I do, making sure that we communicate. But also, the depletion comes in like when we want to spend time together and we can't get a break. We can't get a break. And so sometimes it puts a strain on our relationship. Sometimes we feel like, you know, is this, is this what parenthood is supposed to look like? To me, it's different nowadays than it was back then. You had active grandmothers, active family members, but now what I'm seeing is the direct result of the mindset of the collective. Is just like, you know, some things are off. And so we just have to learn how to work with things that are thrown our way and make sure that we are sticking together through it. And that's the most important thing.
I love what you mentioned just now, Angel, about sticking together, because that was something that I know I recall from my grandmother, my great grandmother who raised me. They stuck through it, through the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, all the chaos. And so, Angel, what would you say for other entrepreneurs who, have a spouse, they have a few children? What would you recommend that they do to stick together instead of growing apart when things get a little rocky? Because let's be honest, they say teamwork makes the dream work. And so, how would you say that other couples who are both entrepreneurs can live by that motto of sticking together when things get rocky?
Yeah, so like I said, I want to stress communication and alignment. Those are two words I really want to stress: communication and alignment. And I'll tell you what's challenging when you're an entrepreneur. You tend to think that, okay, business might seem more important than home sometimes, and then home might seem more important than business sometimes. But it's like finding the correct balance, as you say, which I just think, I don't know if balance is a thing that exists. We just do the best that we can. But communication and making sure everything is alignment. Do our paths correctly meet? Are we thinking the same thoughts, money wise, you know, everything wise? You know what I'm saying? Everything has to come into alignment, and we have to be on agreement. You know what I'm saying? Because I'll tell you this one thing: being raised in a single parent household, for me, having a relationship was not something easy, because I've never seen my mom have a healthy relationship. And so there's a lot that I'm learning about myself. And I feel like being in a relationship and loving someone is the ultimate kind of love. This person can tell you things about yourself that you don't see, and even in a sense where I might get defensive, or women, we might get defensive, you still got to stop and reevaluate and say, is this thought or this action trauma based, or is this something that makes sense? And trauma has a way of covering the things up that really makes sense. You think because I've been through this and I've survived this, that no one can tell me anything, right? Because they haven't been through it. But people understand. People understand. So for me, it was very hard for me to let my husband be a part of my life, not because I didn't love him, but because, being homeless and having to be responsible for myself for so many years, I didn't know how, you know. And so he's made me realize that in many ways, and I'm grateful for it. And so we can't be egotistical and stuck up and also very defensive when we do get these messages, or when our spouse tells us things about ourselves. We have to be willing to listen and open up and make that change. And that's where new things can happen.
Ooh, Angel, you touched on another one of my favorite topics, trauma. And I'm going to lightly touch on this because with you being married, that tends to sometimes the communication gets a little thin lined when it comes to speaking about trauma. And Angel, for you, what would you say it took for you to work through some of your traumas and be able to have that open dialogue with your spouse? Because I know a lot of times people tend to suppress those childhood traumas, whatever that may be, and then it creates that wedge in the relationship. And so, what did it take for you to be able to open up to your spouse about the traumas that you endured to be able to bring you two together?
I think number one is reminding myself that I'm safe and this person is not here to harm me. This person is not here to harm me. This person wants the best from me. Knowing that, and knowing that this is a person I want to spend the rest of my life with, are things. If you don't want to lose a person, you're going to do things differently. You know what I mean? And so when you've already spent a lot of time losing people in your life, sometimes you can feel like, if they go, then I'll be good because I've known how to survive for myself. But this is detrimental to personal growth and development. Sometimes you got to be able to stop and say, is this helping me or is this hindering me? And if this is hindering me, am I willing to face that ugly monster of trauma that's all up underneath there to overcome this right now? And it's not easy, Portia. It is not easy. I know you know, okay? Overcoming and dealing with trauma, this is not easy. I mean, we can go on social media and see a whole bunch of people and they're spiritual and this and they have this and they make it look like it's easy, okay? But behind closed doors, you get those ugly cries and you really have to evaluate, and it hurts hearing things about yourself that you don't feel like it's true, But we've got to make that change. We've got to be 100% honest with us. What is your recipe for healing? We don't want to use ingredients that stunt your growth, because you're trying to do things that aren't realistic, And so just being 100% completely honest with yourself about where you are in life, no matter what you've accomplished, because I've seen the most successful people still have, crappy love lives and they can't keep friends. So it's like working on yourself is working on yourself in all aspects, not just in business.
Oh yeah, 100%. And Angela, you are so spot on about that. I mean, there are some people who are in the public's eye, they have it all the green check marks, the house, the cars, the followers on social media. But yet
Yeah.
internally, they're like little kids in their traumatic experiences of life that are slowly resurfacing because now they're on a more public platform and it's harder to cover up those things now that you're in such a public eye view. And so it's important to really try to work through those things as early as you can and not feel ashamed to ask for help. And I mean, I'm very transparent. I'm currently in therapy myself, especially with this whole grief process with my mom. And I was against it. I'll be very transparent. I was against therapy for a couple years after what I went through, going from not so great therapists, 4 different ones that I had to let go. And now I'm like, you know what? I can't be like that. I need to put the ego down and be open and receptive to someone new who can show me a different way of thinking. But I digress there. Angel, oh my goodness, I knew this conversation was going to be worth the wait. And before we wrap up here, Angel, you also are an event guru. So, can you share with our listeners what you have upcoming? So, if people want to learn more about it, they can directly connect with you. What's in the pool of Angel's events that people can learn more about?
Well, currently I don't have any events coming up. I want to plan a big one, which is going to take a lot of investing. And so I'm taking a step back so I can, be able to do that. But with events, for me, comes a lot of panic because I'm always like, I want things to go right. Okay. I want people to benefit from it, not just on, okay, I was there and it was a great event. I want you to meet people who empower you, who inspire you. I want you to gain opportunity when you attend my events, and so I always say that my why is very deep when I do anything. I do nothing without having a clear intention on why I'm doing it. And so I just need to work on this event and make sure I can pull this off, which I'm sure I can. But you can follow me on social media for any upcoming things. I do host a platform on my Angel Inspires page known as Conscious Conversations that I want to bring back soon. And we just have those deep, ugly talks with entrepreneurs in business about what it's like to be in business and, the journey to self-love and healing and all of that good stuff. And so you can get some of that too. So I'm working on that. I'm working on my YouTube channel. I have interviews on there from like 2014, and you can see those. So yeah, that's what I'm working on now.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I am excited and look forward to your extravaganzas because, as you said, everything is put out into the universe with an intention, and the intention is pure. It's not a tit for tat. It is definitely organic and for other people's growth along with your own. Angel, we are going to be wrapping up here soon. And once again, I thank you so much for joining me in this conversation and being a part of it and being so transparent and vulnerable. Because again, that tends to be looked at as a bad thing, but really it is true strength to be vulnerable and transparent. And we need more of that in the world that we live in today. Angel, I always love to say this question for last. What words of inspiration can you leave with our listeners today, Angel? Whether it was someone who was once in your shoes, who had an abortion and they've had that awakening, but now what? Or if it's someone who's a current entrepreneur that maybe they've reached that pivot in their career where they're not able to advance because of childhood traumas that have resurfaced and festered throughout their relationships. What words of inspiration can you leave with our listeners today, Angel?
I would like to tell our listeners to make sure that you learn to get in tune with yourself. There's going to be a point in time where there has to be solitude. There has to be a point where you are by yourself and you learn the ins and outs of you. And even in doing this, you don't fully learn yourself, but you learn that other people are human just like you when you sit down and carefully consider that you are human and we all are kind of going through the same experiences. Nobody has gone through anything new under the sun. There's so many people out here who can connect with you, learn from you, and also that you can learn from. And so that's my biggest piece of advice is to learn yourself, um, learn how to love yourself, and be honest with yourself about where you are and your personal growth and development journey. That business is not the most important thing. You are. You are the most important thing. You are. Your mental health is, your physical health is. You are the most important thing. The train cannot run without you. And so that's it. That's my final piece of advice.
Angel, you hit the nail on the head. There's a book called The Game of Life by Florence Scovel Shinn. And in that book, she mentions that man is not your enemy. Man is not your friend, for man is your teacher if you are open to it. Absolutely. Well, everybody, that was Angel Inspires that you heard from. And that concludes another episode of Grew with Portia on this Motivation Monday. Thanks for listening and have a great and awesome week, everybody.